Hello, my name is Alan Mayer. I'm a retired Anglican priest, and I'm taking us through the Bible in 365 short readings with a little commentary by me after each one. At the moment, on days 108 to 116, we're looking at the history of the divided kingdoms of Israel and Judah, and at the moment we're looking at the life of Elisha, the prophet to the northern kingdom. And here we have an unusual story today, the story of a foreigner who comes to believe in Yahweh because of something that the prophet can do for him. This is day 113. Naaman is cured of his skin disease by Elisha. It's the second book of Kings, chapter 5, verses 1 to 27. Naaman was the highly respected commander-in-chief of the Syrian forces. He was esteemed because, by his efforts, Yahweh had given the Syrian army victory, and he was a great soldier. Unfortunately, he was suffering from a leprous skin disease. In one of the Syrian raids against Israel, they had carried off a young Israelite girl who now served Naaman's wife. One day she spoke to her mistress. "If only my master could visit the prophet in Samaria and get cured." When Naaman heard about this, he told the king what she had said. The king wrote a letter to the king of Israel and sent Naaman to him with it, along with 30,000 silver coins and 6,000 gold coins and 10 changes of fine clothes. The letter read, "The bearer of this letter and these gifts is my army commander Naaman. Please cure him of his skin disease." On reading the letter, however, the king of Israel shredded his clothes in exasperation, exclaiming, "What does the king of Syria mean by this? Does he expect me to cure the man? Does he think I'm a god with life and death in my power? It's obvious he's trying to pick a quarrel with me." But the prophet Elisha soon heard about it and sent to the king, "Please don't get upset. Send him to me, and I'll show him there's a prophet in Israel." Naaman went to Elisha's house with his chariot and horses. He stopped outside, and Elisha sent his servant out to tell him to go and wash himself 7 times in the river Jordan, and he would be totally clear from the disease. Naaman drove off in a rage. He was saying he might have come out to see me in person and pray for me to his God Yahweh and wave his hand over the skin disease and make it better. Anyway, aren't the Damascus rivers Abana and Parfar better than any in Israel? I could have washed in them and been cured. His servants came over and said, "Sir, if he'd asked you to do something hard, you would have done it without question. Why don't you just do it as he asked? You might get better." So Naaman went down to the Jordan, dipped himself in 7 times, as instructed, and his skin became clear and healthy like a child's. So he drove back to Elisha with his entourage and said, "For sure, there is no God except Israel's God. Please accept a gift from me." Elisha said, "I serve the living Yahweh, and I swear by him that I will not accept a gift." And even though Naaman insisted, he still refused. So Naaman asked, "Let me load up 2 mules with earth to take home. From now on, the only God I'm going to make offerings to is Yahweh. I hope he will forgive me when I have to go to Rimmon's temple in Syria with my king. I hope that Yahweh will forgive me." "Go in peace," Elisha said, and Naaman left. Here today we have another slice from the Elisha saga, showing unusually the conversion of a high-up foreigner, Naaman, to the worship of Yahweh. It's an Israelite slave girl who speaks boldly to her mistress that gives a woefully misunderstood piece of good news to her master, the commander-in-chief of the Syrian army, giving him the longed-for hope that his leprous skin disease might be curable. This malady might have been anything from full-blown leprosy to psoriasis or some nervous skin complaint. They weren't able to distinguish between them back then. There was a quite understandable political hiccup, however, when the Israelite king thought his Syrian counterpart was trying to heat up the Cold War between them by asking him to do the impossible. What was worse was the cultural misunderstanding, because poor Naaman was expecting a personal interview with Elisha and some showy healing magic, such as he might have expected back in Syria. A mere servant telling him to go and have several baths in the local river was a million miles from what he expected, and his officers had to calm him down from his outraged reaction and persuade him to do as the prophet said. Shouting, the waving of arms, and hysterical prayers are still seen in some churches even to this day, mostly amongst charismatic and biblically fundamentalist Christians. They might learn something from Elisha and Naaman. There is no hysteria here, just a simple expectation that the needy Naaman admits his need and does what is necessary. When Naaman calmed down and did what he was asked, he was delighted to have received a gift from God and declared that he would take a little bit of Israel back home so he could worship Israel's God there, which was obviously going to be difficult. But how delightful it is for us to see this early precursor of the spread of the worship of our God outside the borders of the Promised Land. We do not see the like again until the times of the greater prophets, and its amazing flowering later in the New Testament times. Tomorrow we come, as promised, to the conclusion of the story of Ahab and wicked Jezebel. See you tomorrow.